So I think that introduction kind of covered my introduction, but no, it's okay. Uh, so I was looking into trying to upgrade Django, and it's not quite as easy as you think. Django is a very dynamic community. They release releases about once every year or so, and they have a lot of really neat new features. But as a result, there's some steps to take you through. And thankfully, there's not really any database migrations that I've encountered, at least, since 1.1. But not to say that your third-party packages won't have those. But here, I was kind of approaching this talk. It's kind of a lightning talk style with the, as I was putting together this plan for upgrading our sites, I started making a list of some of the potential problems that we were encountering, or some of the things that needed to be updated and taken care of. And I wanted to share that list in this format here, and it'll be basically a summary of that. But so here's where I'll start. First of all, why might you not have upgraded? Time and cost is a big one. And things, they're just humming along, so sometimes it's hard to want to touch them or disrupt production and doing something like an upgrade. But there's some really good reasons why, of course, you should upgrade, or consider it at least. Security. Django offers a bunch of new security releases, a bunch of new security features every time they have a release. Some of those are the CSRF tokens, the clickjacking. One newer security update is the addition of this allowed hosts parameter in your settings file, and I can talk about that in a little bit. But support. Django has a support policy, and I believe they go back for 2 releases before they stop releasing security releases for that release. 2 major releases, and by major I mean minor. So a 1.4 to 1.5, Django calls a minor release, but it's really like what their release is. So it's I'm calling it a major release. And then there's the point releases, which usually are usually you can just apply and it works, but there's some circumstances where it doesn't. Third-party packages, they'll be upgrading to match. They'll be making updates to their packages, and a lot of times they'll have a cutoff, like we won't support anything older than Django 1.2 or something like that. So that's a reason if you want to update your third-party packages, you're probably going to have to upgrade Django as well. And an obvious option is features. You won't be able to take advantage of a lot of Django's features if you don't keep it up to date. Generally speaking, it's, at least in my experience, it's a lot harder to work on old code than it is with new code, just because of because of these reasons and just code rot. And it's nice to have new code, new methodologies to work with, and it helps speed things up. My general approach for this is basically kind of planning out the update. And this is obviously going to be pretty generic because it depends on what environment it is, but I'm thinking more of like, how do you want to, how are you going to research this? How are you going to deploy this? Are you going to spin up a new server and do a cutover to it? Are you going to run things in parallel? Or are you just going to upgrade the live production site in place? So these things are things to kind of think out beforehand. And identify your dependencies. If you have feeds that you're going to be impacting, or if people are giving you data, you'll need to, identify if the update is going to impact them. you'll want to research not only your own code, but any third-party packages that you've installed. And that, at minimum, you'd probably want to go in, look in your requirements file or your installed packages, and see on the vendor's website or on like PyPy or GitHub, see if you can kind of feel out any problems that you might encounter, like the package doesn't exist anymore, or the minimum requirement has changed, or the API is different, or just in general, you kind of want to get a feel for what kind of third-party issues you might encounter. One thing that I think really is the most helpful is to give it a shot on a development environment. Run it on a local server. Check out your code. Try to do the update. See what problems you encounter, and just work through them. It's kind of a brute force approach, but you're going to encounter probably 90% of your problems and resolve them that way. Before you go live, you of course want to have extensive testing on a real development server, preferably with more than just yourself, your QA team, and you want to plan your deployment and deploy. And this isn't really a deployment talk, so I wasn't going to get into that too much, but that can take place. That's similar planning for any other type of release. So the Django release notes is a really great source of material for finding this. Most of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about here is straight out of there, but one thing that I found a little bit lacking out of the Django docs was the release notes are part of the Django blog, so they're spread out from, whenever they do a release, they have a blog post mixed in with all their other blog posts. So I try to make a list of these release notes, and I don't know if you can see this here, but I posted this on a gist. It's basically an index of all the Django release announcements and a short summary. So I kind of used this as a starting point to at least go back to as far back as Django 1.1. Nothing revolutionary. It's just puts it all in one place. Let's see. So there's been a few notable changes throughout Django's history, going back from 1.1. That I have made a giant list of potential issues that you might encounter. I'll show you that list in a little bit, but I wanted to highlight a few that you'd probably encounter when doing an upgrade from an older version. And maybe you've encountered these yourselves, but just something to be aware of. So databases changed in 1.2 to support multiple databases. Minor change, changing the databases, the databases setting. I had these linked. Unfortunately, I don't have the internet connections configured, but right here is kind of a link to more information on the Django docs. It's pretty straightforward. One thing that's a little bit more in depth is the CSRF protection change. I think this changed in 1.2, and this is a change to way forms were rendered. Before CSRF protection, if you had it enabled, it would just render, for every HTML form that you had, it would just render the token in there. But since 1.2, you have to manually place a template tag in that form. So when you're upgrading, you have to go through all your forms and insert that template tag. A little annoying, but for some reason better. So I made a note, like here's CSRF token, you change the middleware and add this template tag. Let's see. Another change, and this was a little bit of a surprising one, was the JavaScript CSRF token. I'm just going to In 1.2.4 to 1.2.5, they applied CSRF protection to data that was posted via JavaScript. And unfortunately, if you upgraded your micro release from 1.2.4 to 2.5, none of your JavaScript posts would work. It's a pretty simple solution. You have to add a little JavaScript snippet into your headers or your static media, but nonetheless, something a little bit of a disruption when you're doing a minor release. And I just highlight this one because they did it for a security reason. It was, I'm sure, a good reason, but it was kind of you can't just smoothly upgrade that point release. So this is not really a feature break, but it's kind of a recommendation. I think it was Django 1.3 that they introduced the static file, or let's see, where is it? Static media file framework. And this is pretty cool because previously you had to symlink your static media. You had to create symlinks inside the Django source code and your third-party module source code. But here they created a methodology for just creating a management command to copy all that stuff in, all that stuff into your htdocs directory. It was a nice little feature add, and non-required, like I said, but it's the way to go. It's really nice. One big thing was the change from function-based generic views to class-based generic views. And let's see. Sorry, here. Here we go. And as you may or may not know, class or generic views were built into Django. They provided a way that you can create simple little views that you could extend. And previously, these were function-based, and to make them more robust, they created class-based views. And unfortunately, as of Django 1.5, they deprecated the function-based views. So if you were using render direct to template, for example, I think that was one of them, or create, update, list detail, these function-based views, you have to make a coding change to translate those to a class-based view. It's not that hard to make the change, but nonetheless, these are easy to miss in your core code or third-party modules, and it's just something to think about. Django, this is simple. Django local flavor has been removed, and local flavor, if you are unfamiliar, is the like a few form fields and model fields that give you location-specific phone number fields or location-specific social security number fields, so like U.S., Canada. They decided to move that outside of Django core, and now you'll have to pip install that as a separate package, like local flavor US or ES or something like that. That change was made in Django 1.5, and coming up in Django 1.6, that's going to be required. So if you're using those, just be aware that that's going to have to change. This manage.py changed its location. Let's see here. Oh, dang it. There we go. Manage.py changed its location. Basically, they moved it up one directory, and this was a result of a DjangoCon 2011 talk where they kind of were criticizing Django, and they said they wanted to make it more Pythonic and more able to import the code and stuff like that. It was really good reasoning behind this change on this the Google Django developers discussion list linked here. is kind of a nice read, and it kind of explains. That's one change to note. Python version, well, I'll go to this slide for that. Python versions, this slide kind of details them all. Right now, Django 1.5, Django supports officially Python 2.6 to 2.7. That's in transition to 3.0. Is 3.2, the 3-point branch is experimental right now, so it's not quite ready to make that jump yet, but be warned if you make that jump, I guess. And this full list of changes is also posted on a gist. I can publish this stuff to the mailing list, but basically, you know, it's nothing revolutionary. It's just going through the release notes and kind of marking down. I marked down the stuff that I encountered when I was upgrading several sites, and these are, it seemed like it's a good starting point for identifying these things. This is only Django specific stuff. You're going to have to dig into your third-party code and all that kind of stuff, but at least we'll get you on the right track. And I intend to keep updating this just as I find things, and it's free to fork. So if anyone adds stuff to it, you know, just feel free, and I'll merge it in, or however that works. I haven't used just that much. Let's see. Let me just go to general suggestions. Basically, this is just common sense type stuff. Document. It's really helpful when you're making updates. Keep the docs up to date. Use a virtual environment. These are just good practices in general. Follow. Don't repeat yourself. Automate if you can. Try to use like third-party modules that are relatively supported if you have that option. Just because it's easier to deal with a project that's actively maintained. And generally speaking, keep up to date on Django releases. Check out the Google developers mailing list for Django. It's a really good source of kind of where Django seems to be going, and just interesting reading. Plus the Django community on the Django project site, and you know, blog posts and everything. You guys are, I'm sure, familiar with that stuff, not all of it. And that's all I really had. I'm curious to hear other people's upgrade experiences and horror stories or success stories. So if you feel free to ask questions or talk to me later or whatever. Thank you.